Hey y'all, my name's Wesley, and I'm the chair of the Wake County Democratic Party. It's election season. Early voting starts this weekend, and some of the races are starting to get a little testy. That's not unusual, that happens every cycle, and it's a part of running for office and running in politics. But one recent trend that I've noticed does seem to be new. And I don't do this sort of thing often, but I'd like to set the record straight on something. I've noticed a lot of folks decrying the so-called nationalization of politics, or complaining about the quote-unquote partisan takeover of local elections. Recently, this messaging has been amplified by the Wake GOP, by right-leaning candidates, and by Republican elected officials. This is not messaging that's been widespread in past cycles, so it leaves one to wonder what's different this year. Because both parties have been endorsing in local races for years, and both parties have been working to activate our voters for these elections for decades. We text, we call, we knock doors, we send mail, we run ads. None of that stuff has changed. What has changed is the environment. If you're a Republican running for office right now, I bet you don't want national politics brought into your race. But that is not your decision to make. Donald Trump isn't just doing things that make voters angry, though he's doing plenty of that, like tearing down the East Wing of the White House, turning the People's House into a palace so he can feel big and powerful when he hosts his strongman buddies. And I'll admit, it does make me angry. But he's doing more than that. He's doing things that make our neighborhoods unsafe, like kidnapping our neighbors and shipping them off to torture prisons in El Salvador without a trial. He's doing things that make us worried about the future of our families, like shaking markets with his on-again, off-again tariffs, taxing working people every time we buy basic necessities. And he's doing things that make our democracy feel more and more fragile, silencing dissent, rigging our maps, and corrupting our institutions. Those are issues that hit close to home, and it makes me pay a little bit more attention to who my local leaders are. And it's not just Donald Trump. Republicans in Congress haven't been at work for weeks now. They won't swear in a duly elected House member from Arizona because she'd be the deciding vote on releasing the Epstein files. And they won't reopen the government if it means reversing their cuts to our health care. Y'all, virtually every Republican elected official at every level of government around the country has bent the knee to Donald Trump. We saw it just this week in North Carolina, where the state legislature redrew our congressional maps for the third consecutive election cycle, just to squeeze out one more seat for Donald Trump. This is a crisis for our democracy and for our way of life. And what we're not going to do in 2025 is demonize voters who respond to what's happening by saying that we need leaders at every level of government we can trust to represent us and to push back. Our next opportunity to do that is in these local races this year, and you better believe we're going to show up. Now, please hear what I'm saying. These elections are not about less than ensuring we're building affordable housing and having good local governance. That we're scaling infrastructure with development, that we're protecting our environment, that we're ensuring we can all spend more time in public parks with our families and less time waiting in traffic, ensuring that we're growing in the right ways, and that growth benefits all of our communities, not just the developers doing the building. These are important issues, and Wake Dems has a slate of endorsed candidates that are focused on them and running on them and talking about them in our communities. But when voters have to wonder when it's going to be our neighborhood that Donald Trump sends ICE to terrorize, or when it's going to be our streets that he puts troops on, you better believe we understand that it matters who our local leaders are in those moments. And it's kind of rich, to be honest, to hear the same people who worked to elect him suddenly yearn for the days when local elections weren't so politically charged. If candidates didn't want to be affiliated with Donald Trump and the Republican Party and what they're doing across the country right now, they could have easily updated their party affiliation when they filed to run for office. They could have turned down the GOP's endorsement. They didn't. So now they're going to have to own it. They're going to have to own who they are and what they're doing and what they stand for, and they're going to have to ask you to vote for it. And I got a feeling I know what your answer is going to be. Y'all, voters expressing their disapproval with a political party in an election is not nasty politics. That's just called being held accountable for your actions. And I realize that here in North Carolina, Republicans ain't used to being held accountable for their actions. They've gerrymandered the state house, they gerrymandered the state senate, they gerrymandered our congressional districts, and then they gerrymandered them again. with a blatant disregard for the law, and their buddies in the state court let them, as does the extremist court that Donald Trump packed. So I'm sympathetic that there's a certain level of unfamiliarity for the NCGOP that comes with being held accountable for their actions. But they're about to get real familiar real fast. Local early voting starts this weekend. You can vote early by Saturday, November 1st, or vote on Election Day, Tuesday, November 4th, at your precinct polling place, but be sure you get out and vote. At the very least, you'll help elect local leaders that we can trust who can help resist what's happening. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us go vote, and the headline after Election Day is every Republican candidate running for office in Wake County loses, it'll make some of these folks that are enabling this mayhem change course before it's too late. You can learn more about when, where, and how to vote, and learn more about our endorsed candidates and what they stand for at wakedems.org/vote. I'll see y'all at the polls.